The reforms of Solon in 594 set the Athenian constitution on the path towards democracy. In the later 6th century BC, the Athenians would undergo even more democratic reforms. And the 5th century BC, that is the 400s BC, would be the great glory days of Athenian democracy, when the Athenians would build an empire, a naval empire, that would become the dominant power of the Greek world, when the Athenians would repel the Persian Empire in its attempt to invade mainland Greece and subjugate it to the rule of the Persian king, when Athenian society would enjoy a level of wealth and prosperity that had been almost unprecedented up to that time in human history. And most importantly, when the radicalization of Athenian democracy would make it the cultural capital of the world. In fact, the great age of democratic Athens is one of the most creative moments in all of human cultural history. It would see an explosion of creativity in philosophy, in literature like tragedy and comedy, in architecture, in history, in innumerable domains of life. The Athenians would innovate, would push the edges of human creativity and thought. Now, a part of this intellectual environment of Athens was the rise of what are called the Sophists. Now, this word has a certain negative connotation, the Sophists. It comes from the Greek word sophia, which means wisdom. Philosophy is nothing but the love of wisdom. The Sophists are philosophers, they are teachers of wisdom. And they have a negative connotation for one very obvious reason, because Plato, the great Athenian philosopher, opposed their doctrines. The Sophists came into Athens, and they were radical teachers of a new kind of philosophy. They inherited a tradition of Greek philosophy that is called the Pre-Socratic Philosophers. These were philosophers who were something like scientists. They speculated on the nature of the cosmos. They had ideas like the sun was made of fire. Ideas like all matter was composed of atoms. That's a Greek word. It means indivisible unit. They came with a new science that threatened the fabric of the old social order and its traditions, that threatened the foundations of Greek polytheism. The Sophists were part and parcel of the Athenian democratic spirit. They were close to the heart of the Athenian democratic age, and they would create a crisis of belief that would reverberate over the next century. In their different ways, both Plato and Aristotle are responding to the challenge of the Sophists. The Sophists were the first humans to articulate certain fundamental questions about justice, and it's thanks to their creativity and their questioning that we have the great Athenian philosophical experiment that would run from the Sophists to Socrates and finally to Plato and Aristotle. And so in this lesson, we'll consider the challenge of the Sophists and ask why they were able to pose questions that would provoke some of the greatest answers to the question, what is justice in all of human history?